Hi, welcome everyone. This is Rahul, your moderator for today. At the outset, I would like to extend my warm welcome to all students, members of the industry, academicians, and other guests present here today. Request all the participants to mute your audio and video to ensure uninterrupted session for our own convenience. You will have the opportunity to submit your questions to today's presenter by typing your questions in the chat box. Before we begin the session formally, there is a small video that we would like to play. Now I request Architect Siddhartha to play the video. Thank you for the video, sir. So, our today's session is on lighting in architecture, which is also a part of the elective course for the 5th semester students. And our today's webinar, which is ArchLighting, the visual sense. The webinar will be conducted in 3 different sessions. The first session on 19 December, which is today, will be addressed about Introduction to Lighting and its Behavior and Characteristics, Human Relationship with Light, Light Hospitality, and Organic Lighting. The second session on 8 January, which will address about lighting design planning and process of lighting design. And third session on 9th January will be about project briefing and assignment for the 5th semester students as a part of their elective course on lighting in architecture. Now, let me introduce our speakers for today's webinar, Mr. Joshua Raymond and Mr. Fulvio Baldeschi. Mr. Joshua holds a Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering and went on to pursue his Master's in Lighting Design and LED from Politecnico di Milano, Milan, Italy. Having a work experience as an acoustical consultant in India, he has worked as a junior lighting designer in Amsterdam, Netherlands. And presently, he is working as a lighting designer in Italy. He also holds a Lighting Design Honorable Mention Award in 2019 organized by LIT Design Awards. We welcome you, Mr. Joshua.
Hello, hi again.
Hi. And our second speaker, Mr. Fulvio Baldeschi, is the Principal Lighting Designer at Light Company, Italy. We welcome you, sir.
Hello. Hello,
Ciao.
everybody.
Okay. And now I once again request all our participants to mute your audio and video. Mr. Joshua, now the screen is yours to share.
Thank you, Mr. Rahul. Welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from all the time zones. Thank you for having me here. And it's a privilege to be on this platform. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the institution and thank you everyone. So first, I would like to introduce the company where I'm working. Okay, so I'm handing over the video to Mr. Fulvio Baldeschi.
Welcome to everybody. First of all, I apologize for my English. I was start to speak English when I was 40. And thank you for your attention. I'm 55 old. My name is Fulvio. I have a dog and a boy, a daughter. Raymond is with us since the summer, since the summer, and we are very happy that he is with us. We are a company and we project lighting. We are one of the most important in Italy, and mainly we do 3 kind of projects: art and culture, museum, and then we do many private houses and villa, and sometimes hotel, luxury hotel, and shops and offices. But we start to work with museum. We have a wide experience in museum. I started to project light in 1988, and Light Company was born 2 years ago because Light Company is just to project lighting. We don't sell lighting, we are lighting designer independent. Now I introduce the portfolio. We use the light as a building material and expressive element. We create unique lighting scenarios to enhance natural light and create motion. We think that light is a natural light. The most important light is natural light, and so we try to find the truth. We try to find the same feeling that we have with the natural light. The light during the year, light follow essentially the performance, the energy saving. Today we have a very powerful tool, the LED. The LED allow us to move in a different way, and we can follow the natural light, the organic light. And now I show you what mean. Our work starts from the concept. The first step is the concept. This concept is very useful because for me is the dream. The people see the concept and understand the light. Light is very different, very difficult to measure because we are used to compare to other feeling. For instance, the heating system is good for everybody, is good when we have 20 degree. Maybe somebody like 22, maybe somebody like 18, but nobody like 5 degree, nobody like 40 degree. 40 degree. In lighting, is completely different. Our eyes see the moon, and the moon is 0.001 lux, but also during the summer we see the full light, and the full light is 200,000 lux. And so the eyes is a fantastic instrument, but work different among the other sense. The first step is the concept. Mainly we like the hand draw and the effect like this. It maybe it look like comics, but I prefer to say that the people, when people look that kind of concept, can dream, can see the light who prefer. And that kind of concept is very useful for us to tell the first history. For instance, in this hotel, this hotel in Austria, the concept is that outside the snow is very cold. Inside you will find the fire. And so I hope that people would like to enter to drink some coffee, some chocolate, blah, blah. And to well understand this language, to well understand the message, hand draw is really useful and more useful respect on the 3D. Like in Austria. The second language we use is the 3D. Like this, you can see the line, the dot, and we we share the image only when I would like to focus the attention. And the third easy language is the Photoshop, and so we received the 3D from the architect, and then we add some light with Photoshop. For instance, this is a church in Albania. Concept is a promise. We have to maintain the promise. And so when I deliver a concept, the promise must be maintained. In this case, we will see a concept for a villa in Forte dei Marmi, fantastic place in Italy. And below you see the picture. This is a stair in the middle of Siena. High the concept, below the picture. An hotel close to lake in North Italy, the concept, the picture. Fantastic pharmacy, museum pharmacy, and the focus in the concept, the focus was collection of the vase, and the promise is maintained because this work was very, very difficult, but the final result is really close to the concept. We start with the hand draw, and of course we run also, we check the result. We don't do everything by hand. By hand is the final result, but under the hand draw, there is the calculation. And then when the concept is accepted, of course, we do the project. The project is based on the calculation, on the location, the position of all the item, and some suggestion for the home automation, because today the light is linked to the electronic system and is necessary to manage by the electronic system. And so we deliver also all the indication for the atmosphere. The last part, very important for our job, is the control of the fixing, speak to the electrician and try do some tests during the night to check the effect. No, there is no possible to do the light and design and deliver only the concept. The work must be followed by the end. And now some references. Houses, private houses in Tuscany. I like it because all the stuff disappear. You can't see any lamp, you see just the final effect. Many luxury houses. A castle on the right, you will see, you see a castle in Umbria, fantastic castle, because you can see the old stone, but also the new floor in glass. Contemporary houses in an old building in Siena, Forte dei Marmi, Siena. Hospitality. In Italy, we are lucky. There are many old buildings, and today some of them will be restructured to become a luxury hotel. We win in this month many luxury hotels. You can see Castello di Cafaggiolo, Hotel Eden Rome, and also we win recently Grotta Giusti close to Montecatini and Castello del Nero. On the right you see 25 Hours Hotel, chain from Germany, very famous, and they will be open an hotel in the middle of Florence. This is Castello del Nero, an old castle, now it's a restaurant, hotel, blah blah. Hotel Palma, North Italy. Restaurant in Bucharest. Restaurant in Siena. We fill on the brick some small LED who provide the light on the table. Richard Ginori, very famous and old company in Italy, bought by Gucci. This is the shop in the middle of Florence. Cantina Ornellaia, very famous winery, and this photo is the shooting of the caveau. In the caveau there are the expensive wine. Every of this bottle cost 100 euro, sometimes 1,000 euro. Barbary in Florence, and then outdoor. In Italy, we are lucky. There are many buildings, and they are obliged to rebuild in the same style. And so we can do a very nice light. In this photo, in the second photo, in the bottom photo, you can see the style we like very much. In this garden, you can't see, during the day, you can't see no lamp, because the lamp is inside the bush on the top of the tree, and during the night deliver some shadow. In this garden, we have a home automation system and divided the light in 3 levels. One is the shadow, very drama. The second level is the vapor of light on the bush. And the third level is the head of the tree. Every lamp is disappear, is fixing very well in the trees, and during the day, no people can understand that in this garden there will be the light. This is a bigger tree in the garden, 35-meter high, became a fantastic lantern during the night. The garden, and then art. We recently win 19 castle in Albania, fantastic race, and we win international test for us. 8 of them is by UNESCO, and in totally 19 castle. The first job is Museo degli Innocenti in Florence, Cripta del Duomo di Siena, Museo Galilei. In the museum, usually we have to pay great attention to the lux, because some of this stuff is very delicate, and so we have to well illuminate it to don't damage them. Palazzo Ducale in Mantova. In this case, we built a handrail, special stuff, custom made for them, handrail inside the light. My study Duccio. Usually in the classic art, we use 3K light, but in many cases we have the cold color, and they like very much cold light, and so in this fantastic, very important picture, we use very soft 2 kinds of light, warmer light, and in the middle for the Madonna, cold light. A framer not well focused, because we obtain a very soft frame, and the Madonna is in the first, you can see very well the blue dress of the Madonna. Stile dello Zar, temporary exhibition. Ferré, temporary exhibition. Botanica di Leonardo. And then some public, the Marina in Rosignano, fantastic building. Very high building in Milan. This is the entrance, 23-meter high. We deliver some special product, custom made. Novartis Chemical. A school, castle, church. And thank you for your attention. And now we speak, we share Raymond for you. Grazie, Raymond.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fulvio Baldeschi, for the introduction. Nothing exists without light. The colors, the textures, and also the geometry are born from our eyes. When light meets matter, at this is when the miracle of illumination happens. So lighting is everything when it comes to architectural design. It plays a very big role in how you perceive and experience a space, because it radically affects the appearance and the geometry, and also our mood and emotions as well. So a good lighting plan always depends on the characteristics of the light source and how we distribute it in the space. So what is architectural lighting design and what are its importance? Architectural lighting presupposes that there is architecture. It works to serve and enhance the architecture, but not merely as just an accessory, but also to create a cohesive spatial experience. So architectural lighting is an intersection of art as in architecture and also technology as in lighting. So the architecture can also be illuminated or lit, which can be commercial or residential. Other fields endeavor such as design also come into play, of course, but also do physics, engineering, psychology, and sociological effects of light. So strictly speaking, architectural lighting is illumination of building design and their functions. So this term encompasses three main factors. They are, the first is the building's aesthetics, which is very important for residential and commercial application. And the second consideration is the functional aspect. So any aspect which improves one's ability to live, work, function, relax, play, that makes the space easier to use. The third is the efficiency or the sustainability. It is the efficiency of the energy which ensures that light is properly, which is to say economically and optimally used and distributed. So this is where architectural lighting design is relevant. So accordingly, design can relate to the specific purpose or multiple purpose for a given particular space. Say for example, in a kitchen, you probably want to focus on illuminating the preparation of cooking the food. And say in a home theater or a media room, it would be best to design lighting for a proper seating and viewing, such as accentuating good sight lines for comfortably finding your way in a surrounding darkness and also for watching your movie. So generally, lighting design should account for the specific type of action being illuminated. The amount of light provided, the color of light, which may affect the optics for a particular object, such as work of art, and the overall whole environment. Another design factor is the space, whether if it is in interior or in exterior. Also, the distribution of light matters. Though it varies by application, the lighting design should be sufficiently addressed. So architectural lighting in general, it works to foster the spatial experience. And lighting can influence your mood, texture, your spatial awareness, features, and provide intimacy. So this is what differentiates architectural lighting from general lighting. So who are lighting designers? Hmm. There are some important questions you need to ask when you consider planning a new project, specifically, is good illumination important to your project? What is a good lighting design and how is it achieved? Say, suppose an owner or a project manager or a designer may be unaware of the advantages a lighting consultant can bring to today's design and the construction processes. For example, what is the difference between the services provided by a lighting professional versus an electrical engineer or an interior design? Just for an example, the electrical engineer specified lighting just because it is a part of his electrical system. And the interior design selects the decorative lighting just for the aesthetics level, right? So it's just these two things which it is different from the profession of a lighting consultant. So this is where a lighting designer comes into picture. He imagines, he creates, he integrates, organizes, infuses lighting into a coordinated system, including factoring the fact of the advantage of the natural light and the electrical light, or even both. This so that they serve an advance to the human action. So what is light? I have a short video which summarizes light in a very most efficient manner you can understand. So please bear with me.
Light is the connection between us and the universe. Through light, we can experience distant stars and look back at the beginning of existence itself. But what is light? In a nutshell, light is the smallest quantity of energy that can be transported, a photon, an elementary particle without a real size that can't be split, only created or destroyed. Light also has a wave-particle duality, being kind of a particle and a wave at the same time, although this is a lie. Also, when we say light, we actually mean visible light, which is a tiny part of the electromagnetic spectrum, energy in form of electromagnetic radiation. Electromagnetic radiation consists of an enormous range of wavelengths and frequencies. Gamma rays have the smallest wavelengths because they're the highest energy photons, but most gamma rays are just under 10 picometers, which is still way smaller than a hydrogen atom. For reference, a hydrogen atom compared to a cent is about as big as a cent compared to the moon. Visible light is in the middle of the spectrum, in the range of about 400 nanometers to 700 nanometers, about the size of bacteria. On the other end of the spectrum, radio waves can be up to 100 kilometers in diameter, while the biggest wavelengths we know exist can span from 10,000 kilometers to a baffling 100,000 kilometers, way larger than Earth. From a physics standpoint, all these different waves are the same. They all have the wave-particle duality and travel at c, the speed of light, just at different frequencies. So what makes visible light special then? Well, absolutely nothing. We just happen to have evolved eyes that are good at registering exactly this part of the electromagnetic spectrum. This is not a complete coincidence, though. Visible light is the only set of electromagnetic radiation that propagates well in water, which happens to be where most eyes first evolved millions of years ago. That was a smart move because light not only interacts with matter, it's also altered by it and can be used to gather information about the world around us with almost no delay, which is arguably really helpful for survival. Okay, where does light come from? A vast range of electromagnetic waves are created when atoms or molecules drop from a higher state of energy to a lower one. They lose energy and emit it in the form of radiation. At the microscopic level, visible light is created when an electron within an atom, that is, in an excited state, drops to a lower energy state and loses this excess energy. The same way incoming light can elevate an electron to a higher state of energy by being absorbed by it. Macroscopically, the moving charge of the electron creates an oscillating magnet field, which creates an oscillating electric field perpendicular to it. These two fields move themselves through space, transferring energy from one place to another, carrying information about its place of creation with it. Why, of all the things in the universe, is light the fastest thing there is? Let's change the question. What is the fastest way to travel through space in the universe? It's c, exactly 299,792,458 meters per second in a vacuum, 1 billion kilometers per hour. Electromagnetic radiation just happens to move this fast. Any particle that has no mass travels at c, without acceleration or any in between. The light that's being released from a candle does not speed up until it reaches light speed. At the very instant of its creation, its speed is c. So why is c, or the speed of light, finite then? Well, nobody knows. Our universe is just built this way. We don't have a smart answer here. So light is an elementary particle that also behaves like a wave, propelled by two perpendicular fields traveling at the speed limit of the universe. Okay, that's nice and all, but what about all the crazy stuff about traveling at the speed of light and time, the twin paradox, quantum stuff, and things like that? We have to save them for another video. For now, let's just be happy that we evolved eyes that pick up waves of information permeating the universe, making us see things that help us to put our existence into perspective.
So I hope you understood a quick glimpse of what light is, not technically, but yeah. So let's get into the quantitative lighting part. So in lighting, there are 5 descriptions or terms that we use metrics. We call them to describe the light, and I'm going to show them for you. If you take a look at this candle, this is our original light source. The candle is actually emitting an intensity in all directions, and that intensity is actually 1 candela, which is about the amount of light you get from a candle in all and any directions. This unit intensity is used actually to describe the light output from any source. So this is candela. So if I take a light source like a flashlight, I aim it at you, you see a much greater intensity compared to the candle. Then as I vary the angle, you can see the change in intensity. So this is basically the beginning of a simple photometric test. The second unit of measure is flux, which is the light which flows in the air. To talk about this, let's use this. Imagine the white sheet you say is a square foot. Imagine, okay? I'm holding it at 1 foot away from the source with an intensity of one candle in all directions. In this definition, what I have is one lumen of light flowing through this window, and that's the flux of the energy flowing from this source. Now, it's hard to imagine that there are similar kind of frames. So imagine there are many frames along all the directions of the candle. So one candela is almost 12.57 lumens of light being emitted equally from a source. So we talked about the flux being the unit of measure for the flow of light. My question to you is, does light flow? The answer is yes, the light flows from the source through this piece of frame. You can see the shadow if I move the frame, the shadow also moves along with it. So this tells us that this is in fact the light is a form of an energy which does flow. And at what speed of light does it flow? Of course, the speed of light. The third unit is the illuminance, which is the light which falls upon a surface. When I consider a surface instead of a window that is a square foot, and I have a source, it's a candle. Imagine that is a candle. I have a source at 1 foot away. I have the intensity of one candela. I have one lumen of light falling upon the surface. So the density of light on this surface is one foot candle per lumen. So why do we talk this in terms of foot candles? Because it's cheap and inexpensively measured with some light meter or the illumination meter. So if you can measure the density of light falling on this surface, then I think it is true that you can find the foot candles easily measured. You can measure them in any source. Suppose I use the same flashlight and with the light meter, and I vary at a certain distance. I move in and out towards the light meter. I get one kind of reading, but as I vary the distance from the light meter, the numbers as a function of distance. This reduces the density of light on the illumination meter. This also happens same with the, if I start at a certain angle and I try to keep the distance the same but vary the angle, the number also goes or varies according to the angle. So it says that the intensity depends both on the distance and also the angle of incidence on light. So these are the two things accounted for in both the equations. So the density, there are two things that impact the density of light. So same similar like the flashlight. If you know take a flashlight, go towards the wall, you see the circle on the wall, it's more dense. The light falling on the surface is more dense. As I increase the distance or you move backward, you see the light is actually covering a small and larger area. Therefore, the density is of the illuminance or the foot candles can be reduced by increasing the distance. So this is what we call the inverse square law, because it varies inversely to the square of the distance. It also varies, however, with the angle, which is the light, which hits the surface. So the fifth way of talking about light is the light which comes off the surface. Let's consider this card again. 1 square foot, 1 lumen of light falling from 1 foot. Let's talk about the light coming off the surface. If it's a plain surface, a white surface, the reflectance of the surface is white, so it's certain you can see more light coming off of the surface from the candle. Compare this to the surface of a black surface. The only difference is that the two surfaces have different reflectance value, and this is referred to as excitance. This is the light coming off of this surface, intensity of light coming off of the surface, but it's not the it's not the way you perceive the black. So that is the excitance. So this is not the end of the story, but when I change the surface to something more reflective, which is perhaps a mirror, which is specular, it's 95% reflective. So the amount of light or the excitance coming off the surface are the same, but the way the light comes off from these surfaces are different. So this is the function of specularity, or the surface is what we call luminance. It is what we see through our eyes. The specific way in which light comes off of the surface is luminance, and the light which falls on the light is called illuminance. This is what enables us to see the light around in our world, and it's the luminance that we really try to control and design in architectural space. Let's jump into the qualitative aspect of lighting. So let's define the character of light and how it affects our mood based on cycle of light in nature. The character of light can significantly contribute and augment the character of the space. In this instance, a very warm light is used to create a sociable atmosphere. The character of light affects our emotions in tangible and sometimes even powerful ways. So part of this is based on light in circumstances in nature, from the characteristics of morning light to the warmth of light from a campfire. Okay, here, human-centered light. Human-centered light is a concept that acknowledges the way that daylight affects our emotions and our daily rhythm. Sorry. Say, you see the color difference, the temperature during the day and the night. We understand in this that sometimes we can't quite articulate it. The light in the morning, for example, tends to be brighter or bluer type of light. So in this time, our body responds to this light by releasing hormones that wakes us up and gets us going in the morning. The warm light at the end of the day, by contrast, in the evening, is a signal that the day is coming to the end and this is the time to wind down your entire activity. So warmer light is used in relaxing environments and acts as a signal to the brain that it is soon time to sleep. This rhythm of light attached to our daily cycle is what we call a circadian rhythm. This is a hardware characteristic of our body, and the environments we design should try and work with this human-centered approach to light. So the designers of a long-haul planes have acknowledged this, the human-centered lighting, and have begun to integrate the light shifting LEDs. So lighting in their cabins. The phases of light inside the plane is intended to trick your body to think that it's a different type of the day. This especially works when you travel and you have jet lag, the time zones are different. So in order to help our bodies better adjust to these different time zones, here the blue light is used to intend to wake up the body. But compare this to a red light. This is intended to signal to the body that it is time to rest. So the effects of light on mood can also affect because of the climate, where daylight is absent for a long period of time. In most of the European places, we have this. So seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, it contributes to the absence of daylight, which can make people depressed through the long northern winters. So a credible study has found that the doses of light use of artificial light is enough to reduce the instances of winter depression. So in patients, people like this, they use an LED product such as this. It's called the SAD light. So the dose of the intensity of this daylight for a few hours in a day is enough for a person's hormones to be in balance. So this is something. So to measure the warmth of light, it is measured by intensity. For qualitative lighting, the measure of warmth is as important as measuring the intensity. So different types of luminaires and the technology that generates light will produce different watts of light. When you review the specification of a light, it is useful to pay attention to the type of light emitting technology. There are different kinds of this. So you have to be aware where it lies on the Kelvin spectrum. So an old-fashioned incandescent lighting was typically warmer at around 2700 degree Celsius, Kelvin, sorry, whereas a fluorescent light has a higher Kelvin and hence the bluer on the spectrum. So the warmth of light can affect the character of a room. So if you see this image, here the yellow light changes the perception of the plant and the painting in such a degree that it is like they're totally different objects in different rooms. The warmth of the light can change the mood of a space. It is also useful to pay attention to the quality of light for the accuracy of rendering in some instances. The other index is to pay attention to the Luminaire technology, who deploys an color rendering index. So this is a factor of a light, warmth, intensity, and which can change the way you perceive illuminated objects. So in a retail environment or a a supermarket in particular, this is important because higher color rendering index, or it's called CRI, color rendering index, can make the fruit or the vegetable we sell look fresh, and it's very good. It's a great deal for the buyer because he sees the fruits which is fresh. So you manipulate it with the light. So now we can appreciate that the light can affect our emotions and hormones based on the relationship with light. So this is so much based on the intensity of light as it is about the warmth of light. We can influence the mood of space through the color of light without affecting the intensity of light hitting on the surface. So we can therefore affect the mood of a space without compromising the performance, which is both required for the standards. So we understand that warmth as measured in Kelvin affects the mood and which light achieves certain levels. So to understand this is a drastic change. So the two foundational principles of lighting design guide most designers and architects are the qualitative or the aesthetic aspect and the quantitative, which is the engineering aspect. The qualitative part pertains to ensure that the space is pleasing ambience. It is the artistic of light, shadows, darkness, and illumination, highlighting figures and forms. But the quantitative part revolves around providing adequate light for a space and using the guidelines of light levels for many task areas, activity based, or even the nature of space you work in. If the work of lighting design is left to a service engineer to meet the quantifiable regulation to determine the interior and exterior spaces become soulless environments because they don't it's a part of their job, so they don't see it in a artistical way. So using quantitative and qualitative measures, architects and we lighting designers should make sure that the architectural intention and the aesthetics of the space is stimulating and motivating. So put simply, when you design a light for a space, just ask yourself, what are the light fixtures and what light output requirements of the space is required, and how the space meets the subjective psychological, sociological experience of the occupant, which is qualitative. Human relationship with light. Let's look at form and direction as a tool of lighting design. So in this, we will see how the direction of light can help to create and enhance the form of an object or the surface. So we do this by making shadows. We might think that shadows should be avoided, but it is a very presence of shadows that gives us the information we need to identify the shape and the form of an object. It is the dark bits that makes the light bits work. This philosophy can be applied to many aspects of lighting design. What we see is always relative to the surroundings. So with darkness as a reference, any light bits coming immediately is obvious. So we need shadows to help us understand the shape, form, texture. However, shadows shouldn't be accidental. They should be planned by careful selection of right light sources and positioning. So the fundamental lessons about shadow is that they depend on the direction of view. We see in this the shadow from this bird because we are looking at it in a different direction to the direction of the sun, which is coming. If we were to move around, say that we are looking at the bird from the same direction as the sun, then we wouldn't see the shadow. So the shadow would be masked by the bird. So shadows depend on the direction of view. So if we are lighting a doorway, for example, then our direction of view will be towards the door. It's an entrance that we are going to go through. So the light should come from the opposite direction from which we are approaching the doorway. If you are thinking about a building, then, excuse me, if you're thinking about a building, which are the directions you need to see? So there are principal views of direction. Maybe you can say the building 3 or 4 different kind of views. So these many different angles, in which case you have to consider how we can create shadows from all these different angles. We also have to think about the scale of the building. So are we going to be closer to what we are lighting, or the shadows just which we create in the surface will be visible, or is it something like you look from a distance to have the whole picture, say like where some of the subtleties of small shadows can be ignored to help us cue that the texture of the surface just aren't going to be visible. So it depends on the scale also. So on this tower, by grazing light upon it, we are looking at it fairly close range. So with the light grazing up at the bottom, then the texture of the stoneworks is completely revealed. So this really tells us something about the quality and the work that went into the tower when it was made. So as you get on top of this tower, you can see the light, how it grazes, hits the fenestra illustrations. You can see the arch lines, which is going around the stonework. At the topmost, creating a hat, it looks kind of a complete architectural. There is a closure or a hat on top of it, of, of the castle. So the same technique also applies for indoors, where this is very heavily textured wall. If you can see on the second picture on top, you can see heavy textured wall. That's in a retail environment. The shadows are telling us that the information we need to say, this is really a textured wall. A lot is put, and the person who designed it and the architecture, the aesthetics. So this is done by having a grazing light from down or top. We also can regular patterns of light falling from the way we see. So a complete uniform illumination surface is what we look at this textured stone wall and developed lights. Even though they have different angles, but when you come to the bottom, as you go lower, you can see that they are all in a uniform illuminated way. So this shadow tells us the microstructure or the macrostructure of the wall. So the real difference in a way, the stone here is being formed is the very nature of the shadows formed. So this tells us that the microstructure gives us the impression of a quality of the stone and how it was created. They see that the light, if you see this by the daylight, where you get a lot of diffused light, a lot of these shadows are not visible. So they are completely different. What really makes the wall interesting on the right is the way we can grace a light down and make it stand out, how we can influence the way we integrate luminaires into the space. So Louis Kalf, he was the founder of a design in Philips in the early days before the lighting design thought. So about this, he visioned how architecture and lighting could come together through an understanding of space, form, color, and materials. Only when the light of the luminaire arranges a space in the light and dark areas, when the chosen forms, colors, and materials are visible in a way meant by the architect, can we speak of lighting architecture. We will talk about this with this example. So, what is the first thing that comes into your mind when you talk about lighting design? Is it a design or is it a calculation? Is it something mathematical or uniformity, glare, the terms, etc.? Or do you start with an imagination of how the space is and how you would like to see it lit, or the surfaces, the brightness, the colors? So there are two different processes which are both required, but maybe you're often thought of this together as calculation, but the proper view, the way to say is, yes, you, like you were told, you deliver the concept and you also do the calculation. So it is not just light, you just place lights and you imagine there is lights and then you don't do the calculation, because we have to also follow the standards. So the way that you can imagine, so imagination is a mental picture. So what you want to achieve is something you cannot do without an experience. So you need a lot of experience on the way the light is perceived. So you cannot guarantee a final result until you go through these ideas. So you play with light, you see how the shadows are formed, and this helps you to approach the lighting design. So when you create a lighting design, you will place luminaires on the ceilings in a pattern usually determined from a calculation, sorry. The luminaires are placed in a regular pattern because the calculation has told you that that this will give you the best result. But did you know that you may be creating patterns as the eye tries to join up the dots? So it lines the dots, joins the dots. So in doing so, you are creating shapes which should align with the architecture of the space in this. So this is known as Gessol's theorem, where the combination of parts is different from the individual parts. Lighting is generally provided by a large number of luminaires, which we perceive in configurations and patterns. We always try to understand so simply what we see, and what we do is subconsciously done. However, we perceive groups of shapes which have been categorized by German psychologist of the Gestalt, his name is Gestalt, school in the 30s, known for the law of perception. So he also has the law of continuation, which states that the eye sees a geometrical form when it is not in complete dotted line. So say for example, a dotted line, you perceive that there is line. You can see the whole thing as a line. So that's what you imagine. It's the law of continuation. So here the uplights provide an even illumination to the floor, and the walls you see them are a continuous row. This emphasizes the length of the corridor or the patterns of the light, because the pattern of light you create makes you feel that the corridor is, it's long way, it's a long way to go. Coming to the law of proximity, your calculations might have told you that you need, say, 12 luminaires should be placed here and here, but the program, however, doesn't know the architectural feeling. So it is just imagines as a four wall ceiling. If there is any architectural influence, it is ignored. So it is basically just calculation. So this Gessol's law of proximity occurs when the elements are placed closely together. So this intends you to perceive as a group. So here you can see 12 squares rearranged as two lines of 6. So this is more appropriate arrangement for the way in which the room has been designed. For now here, the number of luminaires appear as 6 groups, or 2 as a luminaire in each group. So they are much closer to each other. And this is how it looks. If you're concerned about the effect of the calculated numbers, you can always rerun the calculation in the software to see if it's acceptable, or you can decide if these patterns are okay, the layout, if it's generated by the calculation, etc. So they come from an intervention of designers. Here, an example, we are looking for a solution related to the dimension of the room or the grid of the building. We choose a type of luminaire related to a layout we have in mind. Making a lighting design in this type of luminaire, we can make an enormous difference in the perception of the space. Try to imagine that what you can see here is 600 by 600 square fitting, and apply the calculated spacing. You get an evenly spaced pattern all over the ceiling, but now the arrangement doesn't complement the shape of the room. So the squares give no direction when placed in just a grid. In this example of a car showroom, the arrangement bears no relationship to the space of the building, or in this case, the cars are just displayed. So rearranging them into a pattern focused around the central square of the octagon, this creates more logical pattern. We see these groups of 3 octagons that match the shape of the building. This signals the customer that this is not just an ordinary showroom, but one where an attention to detail has gone to with every aspect of design. So using a linear luminaire, there are a number of possible ways to arrange them. Lines give direction, make the space look longer, narrow, and they do not tie up with the overall shape of the building. See, it's octagonal and it looks awkward. It's completely anesthetic. You can see here the linear arrangement does not match the ceiling. Not that the building, so because the lighting here is a challenging one, because the decision has to be made. It is a specular reflection. You can see this in this picture. So using a luminaire in this way provides a more logical solution. We read the arrangement of these 3 squares placed centrally to each other of the octagon. So depending on whether you can create a strong guidance, you have to pick a luminaire with a certain shape, but also the type of layout you have in mind. The type of layout also demand for a certain type of luminaire. So it's always possible to use a combination of such squares and circles, downlights, combination of rectangles, or etc. shapes. So the third arrangement here uses a circular downlights. These are arranged in a regular pattern generated from the calculator. Does not match the space circles neutral shape. You can see easily it can in different ways to suit the space of the building. Here you can rearrange and complement the existing building, group them around centered of each element. So this type of luminaire you choose makes an enormous difference in the perception of the space. When you create a design, you look at the two-dimensional ceiling, but imagine that you see the ceiling in perspective. What do you see? Lines, maybe. It gives you direction. They can make the space look longer, shorter, narrow, broad. Squares give no direction when it is spaced in a grid. Circles also give no direction when you are but they are less dominant. So depending on how strong the guidance you want to create depends on the shape of the luminaire. So in this we have shown the importance of combining calculation and aesthetics to create a more imaginative design. So this is an appropriate way for the space and how it can be used. I will just show you a small clip of a small space which can be transformed into many different ways. You can also imagine the way it affects your mood. It's a rectangular space, but it looks like a trapezium. So you could see just a small rectangular space can perceive a lot of different experiences, mood, the shapes, the texture. So coming to colors, right now in Florence it's freezing outside, but the sky is extremely clear. Yeah, it's clear, and it's shining into my room. This is clearly my favorite weather, but the temperature could be a bit higher, but at least the light is in perfect condition. So here the sunlight creates high contrast and the lighting looks warm, and this brings out the color of the colors and the kind of matter which brings a smile on my face. So it's a perfect day to talk about light and color. Just imagine a world without color. I think you will agree with me that it will be boring and depressing world. Colors influence everything we see and influences our perception by accident or by on purpose. Color can create complex associations and symbolic interactions
symbolic interactions. So, during the introduction of the color television in the beginning, a lot of people, especially the ones who did not have questioned about the color, I think you will agree with me that no one would want to go back to a black and white screen again because the world around is full of colors. These colors are all set in our minds. We experience color only with our visual sense. Our visual sense is 80% more dominant than the other sensory human sense, because if you take the touch, the touch and etc. But the way the eyesight is the most perceived, or 80% of what you say is perceived because of your eyes. It's the light. So the first issue addressed is the color impression of the light. So simply say, we do not impression of a most people from an incandescent bulb suggest comfort and intimacy. On the opposite, blue light, blue, yeah, blue light of the lamp automatically goes down, resulting in a warm impression, cozy atmosphere. Seeing that this kind of light, a low light level with a warm light, reminds us of a sunset, a time of day when you go back from work and you sit and relax. So when an extra light is used in combination with high level lighting, this can also be easily experienced as too warm and too cold. So imagine what I say and feel and experience light with all your emotions. So just go through with me and you appreciate the active lighting this upcoming slides, because carefully and they are carefully placed lighting products. They are very visual effects. So it's the same architecture but different the ambient. Let's explore and interact with this powerful tool of light at your home. So as you enter the space of the lighting, it of the scene create a light with many overlapping dynamic scallops of light. So it adds an element of drama and depth to the space. The illuminated thread provides subtle lighting that leads you upstairs. As you sit back and relax on this luxurious, beautiful home, you feel totally relaxed and captivated. You smell the fragrance of the fresh flower and admire all the amazing features within your space. As you listen closely, notice how easily the soft illuminated amber color emerges. You drift further into the state of tranquility floor, creating the most welcoming illumination. You enjoy the relaxing feeling of the warmth of the open fire, complemented in the background by a soft gleam of light from the pin spots. They shine onto the enchanted Buddha and within the glass niche, creating a beautiful focal point. Not forgetting the detail in the polished plaster ceiling, which comes to life as its side illuminated by the LED tape, creating immense depth and drama. So this is a perfect demonstration of bringing specularity, spectrum of light to your life at home. So enjoy this relaxing feeling. As your guests arrive and walk into your home, they are suddenly captivated by the mood and feeling of the ultimate experience. As champagne and cocktails flow, you take a glimpse of and feel the warmth of the room. Perhaps you wonder by how the intimate spaces have been carefully created and how particular features of the room have been highlighted by the different lighting effects. Notice the balance of the colorful red and white light from the stunning effects of the architectural lighting. The gentle illumination on the wine rack leads your guest to help themselves to the drinks. The warming amber apparatus isolates the ceiling area, providing as you turn at the side, you see that the far wall, the illumination of the crystal LED kit, which creates drama and soft, delicate ambience, which leads you towards the soft glow of the low-level lighting. You will notice different complement each other to get the clearing. So the device in just a single space, just with lighting. So it is all what you perceive, feel, and enjoy with light. So it is always good to appreciate light around you, appreciate the texture, the scale, everything around you. I'm sorry.
So the question was, what are the ideal wall-to-window ratio for optimum daylight in tropical zone?
In tropical zone.
Yeah.
Okay. In tropical zone, it depends on the section of the window you use. So the ratio is more or less depends on the section of the window, the frame of the window. If it is outside,
Kind and generous in accepting our requests. I would also like to thank all our participants for joining us in this presentation and requesting you to register for the next following sessions too. It's an honor to be moderator for today's webinar, and I would like to thank Architect Siddhartha and Jyoti, the webinar coordinators, and Architect Ashita, broadcast coordinator, and Architect Neha for the guidance. Thank you, Joshua, and thank you, everyone.
thank you everyone for your time and patience. Thank you.
Yeah, so I hope we'll again meet
Yes.
soon in Jan 2021, which is in the next year. So I hope it will be as interesting as the same session in the next two sessions.
Yes, sure. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, so we are again looking forward to see you soon. Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you everyone. Bye bye.
Bye, everyone.